All right, let's dive into this, shall we? Ecclesiastes. You all wanted it, so here we are, chapters 1 through 3.
Oh yeah, Solomon really gets going in these chapters.
The preacher. Right. He doesn't hold back. We're talking big questions here, meaning of life, purpose, the whole deal. All that stuff we're still wrestling with, even in the 21st century. What can we take away from this? From this ancient wisdom, I mean. That's what we're here for, right? To figure that out together.
It is amazing, isn't it, how these writings, from so long ago can still feel so now.
Right. Like he's talking directly to us, and he jumps right in. No messing around. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Whoa, heavy stuff. That line, I mean, it's been everywhere. Philosophers, poets, even like teenagers complaining about homework. It's everywhere. But what does he really mean by vanity? It's not just about being like full of yourself, right?
No, definitely not. The way it's used here, vanity, it's more about how temporary everything is, all the stuff we chase after.
Okay, so like what? Give me an example.
Think about like social media and how people crave those likes.
Oh, yeah, that dopamine hit.
Exactly. We get that little rush, but it disappears so quickly, and we're right back to wanting more. And that's what Solomon is getting at, whether it's wealth, power, pleasure, it's all temporary. In the moment, yeah, maybe it feels good, but then poof, it's gone. The satisfaction fades.
It's interesting, though, right? I mean, this is Solomon. He had it all, riches, power, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
And he's the one saying this stuff. You'd think he'd be telling everyone to go out and get rich.
Right. But I think that's exactly his point. He's saying, look, all that external stuff, it doesn't get to the heart of the matter.
The deeper question.
Yeah, like what's the point of it all? What truly matters? And he uses all this powerful imagery to drive that home.
Yeah.
The generations coming and going, the sun rising and setting, the wind blowing in circles, all those natural cycles, they just keep repeating. And it's easy to get swept up in that, to go through the motions without ever really finding, true fulfillment.
It's almost like he's saying, been there, done that, and it's not what it's cracked up to be.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's not just about those things either. The pleasure, the possessions. Solomon, he even questions knowledge itself, which is kind of wild, right? He was known for his wisdom, but he even calls it a sorry task at one point. Not exactly inspiring, is it?
No, not really what you'd expect from like the wisest guy around.
But what I think he's getting at maybe is that wisdom, it comes with a price. The more you understand about life, the more you see how complex it really is.
Yeah.
And that can actually lead to more sorrow. It's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And that can be kind of unsettling.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, haven't you ever learned something new and it just made you realize how much you don't know? Or maybe even like made you feel worse knowing it? I know I have. It's like sometimes ignorance really is bliss.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. I don't think he's saying we shouldn't seek knowledge at all, though. It's more about understanding its limitations.
That it's not this magic cure for unhappiness. So knowledge isn't always the answer. Kind of leaves you hanging, doesn't it? Where do we go from there? If even wisdom can't fix it, I mean.
Well, that's where I think chapter 3 picks up. And that's where we get this really famous passage, the one about the different seasons of life.
Oh, right. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted.
Exactly, that one. That's been quoted so many times, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. And it's interesting how it comes right after all that stuff about futility. Is it a shift in tone? Or is it still, tied to this idea that we can't control everything?
I think it's both, actually. The way it's written, all that repetition and the rhythm of it, it's almost like a calming chant.
Yeah.
In the middle of all the chaos.
Yeah, I see that.
Like he's acknowledging all those ups and downs, the joy and the sorrow, the love and the loss. It's all part of it. The whole experience of being human.
Right. It's not saying we shouldn't, try to make things better or fight for what we believe in.
Exactly. But there's wisdom in recognizing that we don't have control over everything. And sometimes pushing against that natural order, it just leads to more frustration. And ultimately, more futility.
It's like that saying, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Yes. The courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to know the difference. I think that's exactly what Solomon is getting at here.
It's that wisdom to know the difference that seems so key.
Yeah, absolutely. And it requires us to really engage with the world.
Yeah.
To think things through, to make those choices even when things are complicated.
Speaking of complicated, there's that one verse in chapter 3 that always throws me off, where Solomon says, God has set eternity in their heart. Like, whoa, kind of a curveball after all that stuff about how temporary everything is. What's he talking about there?
Oh, yeah, that one. There's one of those lines that's been debated forever. I mean, what does it even mean?
Right.
Well, some people, they connect it to like Plato's ideas about the soul, you know, yearning for something perfect and eternal. Others, they see it as hinting at heaven, from a Christian perspective. But even if you take away those specific religious interpretations, I think it points to something we all experience, something universal,
What do you mean?
that feeling of wanting more, like there's something bigger than us, something beyond all this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We might not know what it is or where it leads, but it drives us. That search for meaning, even when it feels like nothing really matters. It's like that yearning reflects that eternity in our hearts.
Wow, that's deep. But it brings us back to the same problem, doesn't it? If everything really is temporary, like Solomon keeps saying, what's the point of even trying to find meaning? Does anything really matter? I don't know. It's a tough one, right? If it doesn't matter, why bother? But maybe that's not the right question to be asking.
Maybe not. It all comes down to perspective, I think. A lot of people, they get stuck on that nihilistic view. But Solomon, he's not telling us to just give up.
Right. He does say to rejoice and, do good in your lifetime. He even talks about the simple things like having a nice meal or enjoying a glass of wine.
Exactly. So it's more about finding that joy and purpose in the midst of it all. Even with all the uncertainty, it's like embracing the chaos.
Oh, I like that. Embrace the chaos.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, though, right? I mean, the world we live in, there's so much pressure, so many distractions. It's hard to find that peace, to just be content when you're constantly bombarded with all this stuff, the news, social media, just the whole hustle of modern life.
It's true. And that's why I think Ecclesiastes is still so relevant.
Yeah.
Because it reminds us that these questions, this struggle to find meaning, it's not new. Even Solomon, someone who had everything, all that wisdom, all that wealth, he still wrestled with these same things.
It's kind of comforting in a way to know that even a king had those same anxieties. Sometimes I think we get caught up in this idea that we have to have it all figured out, to be successful and happy all the time, like what we see on social media. But maybe that's just an illusion.
It is. It's an illusion. And honestly, it often just leads to more suffering. What Ecclesiastes teaches us is that it's okay to not have all the answers, to embrace the uncertainty, to find those moments of joy where you can.
Right, but how do we actually do that? We can't all just build palaces and plant vineyards like Solomon.
True. It doesn't have to be that grand. It's about focusing on the everyday things, cultivating gratitude for a good conversation, a delicious meal, a moment of beauty in nature, even finding satisfaction in your work, even if it's not your dream job, and connecting with others in a meaningful way.
It sounds like it's a shift in perspective more than anything, a way of seeing the world, accepting both the good and the bad, the light and the shadow.
Exactly. It's not about pretending the futility isn't there. It's about finding a way to live a full life, a meaningful life, even with it.
Beautifully put. And it's a journey, right? Not a destination.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no one right answer when it comes to meaning. The important thing is to keep asking those questions, keep searching, and keep trying to live a life that feels authentic to you.
I love that. Well said. We hope this deep dive into Ecclesiastes has given you some things to think about, maybe some new ways to approach these age-old questions. We'll leave you with this. If Solomon, with all his wisdom and experience, was still trying to figure it all out, what does it look like for you to embrace this one precious life with all its beauty and, all its bittersweet moments? Keep searching, keep questioning, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.